So how much detail should be included in the methods section? Some professors believe that if you're citing a source with procedures, there's no need to reproduce the procedures because a reader could go look up the source and find the procedures for themselves. Some believe that the methods section should be completely standalone, meaning that while you cite your source for your procedures, you write them out explicitly so no one has to go look them up. As such, it's best to ask your professor what level of detail he or she expects. To the right is an example where citing the Wake Tech lab manual is sufficient for providing background on how the experiments were performed. In general, though, you want to provide enough information that someone else could reproduce your experiment entirely. In this case, citing the lab manual does provide a lot of the information in terms of the methods, but there's also additional details provided in this methods section to help explain any deviations away from procedures. Part of what needs to be included in a good methods section, though, are the materials used in any applicable hazards. In this case, sodium hydroxide solution being a caustic solution has been identified. You should also state any instruments that were used and what they were used for, in this case, a titration burette. You should avoid using superfluous information. So what would we consider superfluous? Well, ask yourself why you're providing the information, then ask yourself how the experiment would change if that information was changed. For example, if you titrate in a 250 milliliter flask versus a 125 milliliter flask, does that change the endpoint of the reaction? Probably not, so that information can be omitted. But what about using calcium carbonate to neutralize an acid versus sodium carbonate? They had different atomic weights, so the amount you would use for either one would be very different. Therefore, if you change from calcium carbonate to sodium carbonate, you should definitely list the types of material that you use. You should also write out any chemical reactions. So if you're performing a chemical reaction, you should give the balanced chemical equation as shown to the right. If there is more than one reaction, be sure to number them for quick reference.